Jordan, are you here yet?
I am, for the moment anyways.
If it crashes again, we're booting you out of the podcast.
I would do the same.
It's like Jack Sparrow. We'll continue on without you. So, guys, Skype warned me, said to avoid legal snags by letting everyone know that I'm recording them. So, I'm recording.
You've been recording this?
So I've been putting on the internet for other people to listen to. There's a Facebook page. It's a whole thing.
So, hello everybody. I'm Freddie.
I'm Matt.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Jordan.
And welcome to the Possible Spoilers podcast, where our combined powers of clairvoyance may or may not be enough to spoil the upcoming stories that you're looking forward to.
Exactly. And so we just wanted to open up tonight and talk a little bit about possible spoilers. See, one thing that we want to make clear is this isn't just for brand new stuff. That's what we've done up till now. So it's new video games, it's new movies. But this also is an opportunity for us to talk about things we haven't interacted with at all. So before, we've also talked about that we haven't seen Citizen Kane. None of us have. So those kind of things that we have just never seen, never interacted with, we work very hard to avoid actual spoilers for any of the stuff we talk about.
Yeah, I look at trailers. And I look a little bit at some articles, but I avoid spoilers like a plague. I always have. It comes natural to me. So all of our spoilers come straight from the Spiritus Mundi. They don't come from any kind of actual spoilers. We're making predictions here. We're using clairvoyance, like I say in the intro.
Yeah, exactly. We're not trolling the fan theory blogs that come out, the deep dives. In fact, at the time of recording this, the final trailer for Star Wars Episode 9 just dropped. And already I've seen like 4 different places talking about deep dives on what all of this means and did this happen. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, like, why do they not know, like, this thing that's been leaked? Well, this is why. It's because we actually avoid leaks and, like Freddie said, actual spoilers.
Yeah, we rely way more on our psychic abilities than on
our baseless speculation than leaks.
Than other people's baseless
than
speculation.
Other people's investigative journalism.
Precisely. And on the flip side of what Ashley was saying, if you're listening to this podcast and go, how did they get so close? Well, that's just because we're so talented. There's really no other reason.
And that being said, we do watch trailers.
We do watch trailers.
I do watch trailers. I do watch trailers so I can have some stuff to go on. So if you're one of those people that do want to avoid every single bit of info, including trailers and things like that for upcoming stuff, you probably wouldn't be on this podcast in the first place.
Also, you're a little weird.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to alienate the audience.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of, you have to see at least one trailer, right? How do you know the thing exists?
You know, there have been like good big discussions on this about people who like won't watch the trailer at all. And they have interesting thoughts. They're going to be like, well, I know I'm going to watch Star Wars. Like, I know I'm going to. Like, that's not even a question. So why would I watch the trailer for? I don't need to know anything about it.
Okay, I see. I guess, like, you know the thing is coming out because it's part of a trilogy, so... Precisely. Okay, so if you're that person, you're not that weird.
Yeah, you also know it's coming out.
Ashley's after you.
You also know it's coming out because you see the ratings board put the ratings up on their site months before it's ever announced or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite part is when the tomato meter will go, hey, tomato meter reveal 2 months before the film's released. I'm like, okay, that's scary. Man, I just killed the podcast. Good night, everybody.
I just wonder, like, if you're avoiding trailers, how do you go watch a movie in theater? I mean, sometimes I'm late to a movie and I miss the previews, but it's not something I really plan.
You send a scout ahead and they come out and tell you when it's safe to go in. That's what I would do.
You go in blindfolded, ears plugged. It's like, tell me when the movie's starting.
Excuse me, sir. Could you give me a wet willy when the movie is playing? I'm attempting to avoid previews.
Make sure you really get in there. I don't want to miss the actual movie.
I'm going to be in a deep trance-like state. You're going to need to really get in my brain.
This is where I meditate. The moment when the trailers start playing before the actual movie I came to watch.
Why is that person in the front row going home?
Drowns out the noise.
Somebody give that guy a wet willy.
Those are his explicit instructions. I don't know why. And so
That
that's
really
what this
got Dorothy.
podcast is. We are giving a collective wet willy to our listeners as we wake you up and for the main feature.
Mhm.
Which
We're gonna
tonight
make you listen to our possible spoilers.
you're gonna listen. You're gonna pay attention. You're gonna take notes, and there'll be a quiz at the end.
If you listen to this podcast tonight, #Wet Willy.
Hashtag wet willy. Yes.
Let
Great.
people know what it means.
Great hashtag. Because that would be, if I didn't know, that would be a very concerning hashtag to come up in trending. Like, oh no.
Top number 1 on Twitter tomorrow. #Wet Willy.
It'll be on TikTok. Hashtag wet willy challenge. So tonight, our main event is going to be Death Stranding. And I think we've all had this opening for a really long time. We talk so much because all of us, in our own way, are really intimidated about this episode. Because what in the world? If there's ever a podcast where we could either be as close as we've ever been or further away than we could ever imagine, it's going to be on the speculation of what this game could possibly entail. Because there's zero way of knowing.
Based on just the trailers, like I watched 48 minutes of trailers today for the podcast. I still don't know what the game is about.
Yeah,
Like,
I gave up with the trailers. They're not telling
Okay.
you anything.
No, they're not. That's the point.
48
I did-
minutes, and I have no idea what it's about.
Yeah, I did watch a little bit of videos that are like, 10 things you need to know before you buy, which was a little bit more informative, but I'm still like, I have no idea really what's going on.
Yeah, I mostly watch story trailers. One's from, I think, the Tokyo Game Show and Gamescom, if I'm not mistaken.
I think those were the big trailers.
Yeah, and I've pieced together a little bit, but in many ways, what we started the episode with explaining is kind of an all a moot point because we're just struggling to understand Death Stranding,
Exactly.
Yeah.
let alone come up with a way how it's going to end.
To be
Yeah, they-
fair, I think that's the point of Death Stranding.
This might be less predicting Death Stranding and more like explaining just what we think it is.
Oh, I have a prediction. It's just more baseless than
Yeah,
usual.
I have a prediction too, but I feel like I have to, like, there needs to be some context. Like, I have to explain how I understand this game to be.
So maybe we should start with that. We should start with our understanding of the game.
So
My-
what do we understand about this game?
All right. So my understanding is that something happened.
Yes.
Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. Roll credits.
I'm unclear on what happened, but whatever it was that happened had a
It was an explosion.
an explosion.
Yeah, it was an explosion. Or multiple explosions, maybe.
Is that explained somewhere?
Yeah, I saw a video about it.
All right. So
And
an
in one of
explosion
the
happened.
trailers, he does say, like, an explosion caused life as we know it, and then there was another explosion. One of the trailers does say that.
It caused life as we know it, and there's another. So it's like a second Big Bang.
Yeah, they
Maybe?
explicitly compare
Or
it
it could
to
be
Big
like
Bang.
the opposite of the Big Bang, where it causes a bunch of death.
Where everything gets sucked into the
Oh.
vacuum of nothingness.
Okay. Well, whatever happened has led to it being very dangerous to be out in the world.
Mhm.
So people in the United States specifically, and the United States is specifically mentioned in this game, have built cities. They've walled themselves into safe cities, and they don't travel because it's not safe to travel because of things called BTs, which stands for beached things.
Yeah, which are supernatural beings that we're not really sure what they are, but they're very creepy looking.
Vaguely humanoid.
Yeah, some of them look kind of humanoid with some kind of like, I think it looks like an umbilical cord attached to them. Some of
Yeah.
them look like outright monsters. What we do know is that most of the time they're invisible, and they seem to walk on their hands exclusively.
Yeah, the motif of handprints seems to be really important for whatever reason. In the very
They're
first
just
trailer,
constantly doing handstands.
apparently, I mean, in the very first trailer, Norman Reedus, I think his name is what, Sam in
Yeah,
the
Sam.
Sam Porter Bridges.
Yeah.
Sam Porter
The
Bridges.
The most literary name you can come up with is
So it
two
seems
metaphors in there.
Seems like all the character names in this game are very on the nose, because we have, out of our list of characters, we have Cliff, Deadman, Mama, Hartman, let's see, Higgs probably, that's not so much on the nose. I don't know what that means.
It kind of sounds to me like it's a reference to Higgs boson.
Oh, maybe.
Ooh, yeah, okay.
And
So like everyone's names are pretty, like Hartman is a guy whose heart stops every 20, 21 minutes or so. It's kind of a neat coincidence that he has the name Hartman.
His parents knew.
It's secretly a Faulkner novel. In the middle, it's gonna be like, my mother was a fish, and then just keep going with the But see, I think all this it's really interesting because for all the videos, all the theories, all the showcases that has been done, it's always interesting to me when gameplay takes such a backseat to story, atmosphere, etc. And that's really what this game is about. Obviously, it's about that. The story, the atmosphere, keeping that at the forefront, driving that forward. It's always interesting to see a game do that because a lot of games want to, but they don't always succeed at it. And this one already seems like it's succeeding at it because here we are talking about it.
It really seems like the gameplay is an afterthought in this game, which on one hand I'm interested in because I'm curious if that's going to be the point of this game, that gameplay is very much downplayed. But that also worries me because usually when a studio doesn't show gameplay, it means something's wrong. But I don't think that's going to be the case with this game because it seems like from the review buzz that I saw just in passing, it sounds like people are digging Death Stranding. They like it. But it is very odd. Like the one piece of gameplay that they really showed is just Sam placing a ladder and climbing up a ladder.
Which I have a theory on that ladder, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You want to go for it?
I do. I think that extendable ladder, because that was one of the coolest parts. It can extend, it can sort of reach these 2 points. I think it can be hacked to actually reach Kojima's office so we can better understand what the heck this game is actually about. Like it's a stairway to heaven. And we'll just end up in Kojima's office and go, oh my gosh, what is happening here?
Just goes through the sky bot. It goes through the sky bot.
Precisely.
That's assuming Kojima himself knows what this game is about. I mean,
didn't he admit that he didn't?
He seemed to have hinted that he wants everyone that plays the game to make their own idea of what the game is about, which is interesting because it kind of it sounds similar to Dark Souls, because like the Dark Souls games, like the lore is there, but it's always buried. And sometimes it's not 100% clear what exactly happened in any given area, or the details are always fuzzy, which is a very thematic thing for Dark Souls, because all of the great empires and kingdoms of long ago have fallen, and that seems to kind of hold true in this game. Like, I'm kind of getting Dark Souls vibes from Death Stranding. Not in terms of gameplay, but more so in terms of, setting and story presentation.
Yeah, I can see that. It's going to have a Dark Souls-esque sort of social online thing where you can kind of leave messages for each other. But also, I think I heard that the game is going to start out kind of slow because you yourself have to learn everything about the world. And then, kind of once you know more about the world, the game picks up.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And that is one of those places where the gameplay and the story are intertwined, going off what Matt was saying a little bit ago. The gameplay and the story are intertwined in such a way because the story is about making connections. Sam Porter Bridges' mission, sorry guys, his name is difficult, is to go across the United States and for a organization that's now called the UCA, the United Cities of America. And his job is to connect his little keychain called a Cupid to different terminals and connect these cities. But not every city wants to be connected, and also traveling to them is super dangerous because of the BTs. But then the gameplay also deals with connection because, like Ashley said, you can leave messages for each other, for other people playing the game. It's asynchronous multiplayer gameplay. But you can also build structures that other people can use. And if you drop an item off your body, other people can pick it up. And so there is that kind of connection with the gameplay. So that makes me. They talk a lot in the game about the other side, air quotes, that we built a connection to because of this explosion, I guess. And the other side could be other people's games. It could be playing everybody playing the game is playing a parallel universe of the same of the same connected reality.
And just to clarify too, the other side is also where, from what I've heard, if you die in the game, you go to the other side and you have to fight your way back into reality. But I don't think it's very clear yet, like, what the other side is. Like, in terms of gameplay, is it just one room? Is it like another open world?
I had a theory about that because there's a trailer where Norman Reedus or Sam Bridges.
Is it a theory about like the gameplay or like the story?
Kind of both, I guess, because there's one where Sam Porter Bridges he dies, I think, and he's blue and he's in a different kind of wasteland. Looks kind of ethereal, and he puts his gun to his head and closes his eyes and starts to pull the trigger. But the thing is, you think, oh no, he's gonna like kill himself, but that's not from what I can understand, it's not really a regular gun. It's an anti-BT gun. So it's a gun that's specifically made to kill beached things. So he might go to the other side and become a beached thing and have to come back before he goes completely feral and starts walking on his hands, I guess.
Yeah, that's how you know.
That's how you know.
And what I've seen too, there's a lot of like war scenes on the other side. At least I think
like
it's
World War
the
II
other
era.
side. Yeah. See, it seems like you're in the supernatural plane when you see like these war scenes. So, I mean, my theory about that is just kind of the other side to me is probably like the afterlife, and like places and events where people have died a lot are probably kind of replayed in these in this plane of existence. That's really the best I could come up with.
Yeah, if you can't tell, in looking up stuff about this game, me and Ashley have kind of accidentally gotten excited for it.
Researched it and found like, hey, this looks really cool.
Yeah.
It really does.
I kind of feel the opposite. I think I more want to watch someone play this game than I kind of want to play the game myself, if that makes sense. I feel like it would be a more interesting movie, maybe, or like to watch someone else play. I don't know. That's just me, though.
I did see some gameplay that I found interesting. For one thing, the cargo that Sam carries, you have to kind of choose where you put it on his body because it can throw off his balance and affect the way he moves around the world. Because he can only carry so much. He's a regular man. You know, he's only human. Human being. I expect to see plenty of Fat Man Roll compilations, like from Dark Souls, actually. And there's also, I saw a little bit of it's like a little bit of a boss battle with a thing they call chiral beasts. I'm not sure if chiral beasts are BTs or not, but I know when they eat you, it makes a crater. It makes an explosion called a void out, and that crater doesn't go away when you come back from the other side. So the land gets more and more pockmarked the more you die, I suppose.
Live, die, repeat. And eventually Tom Cruise shows up and tries to coach you through it because he's been through this before. He knows what's happening. Listen, guys, I've been here. Just hold on. Emily Blunt will show up any minute now.
It really does sound a lot like that. The Edge of Tomorrow, was that movie?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when you put it that way.
It also reminds me of one theory I have. Let's get to the first prediction that I have.
Oh, boy.
Because my first prediction for the end of this game, if you don't know, they've actually forbade reviewers from talking about anything beyond the third chapter, even after the embargo lifts.
Interesting.
So there must be some kind of twist.
I mean, I'm expecting more than one twist. Like, this is a Hideo Kojima game. It's got to have, like, 87.5 twists, and then it turns out that, like, Kojima bursts in through your front door and tells you that the game was actually a lie the entire time.
Well, speaking of Tom Cruise, I think one of the reasons they chose actors for this game.
That is a weird point. I was shocked at the amount of talent that they pulled together for this. So
it's because we've talked about the other side. The other side could be other people's games, so there could be canonically as many Norman Reeduses as there are people playing the game. Canonically, because that could be parallel dimensions, other people's games.
And Walking Dead fangirls everywhere just lost their minds.
Oh I lost my mind. I mean,
so many Norman Reeduses.
Yeah.
We've also said the other side could also be the afterlife or some kind of Limbo or Hades. They compare it to Hades in one trailer.
Yeah.
But I think what it's actually going to be is the multiple parallel universes are going to be the actors' respective films. So I think after the third chapter, you're going to end up having to go through this Bill and Ted-esque adventure through everybody's respective movies. Like Leia Sado, you'll have to go through The Blue is the Warmest Color and change the rating of the game entirely. You'll have to go through Bond movies, the Bond movie she was in. For Norman Reedus, you'll have to go through The Walking Dead and go all the way back to Boondock Saints.
You have to go to The Walking Dead and make it good. Like, that's your new mission.
It's kind of like
Norman Reedus.
It's kind of like the Kingdom Hearts of B movies.
Somehow got back to Kingdom Hearts.
See, Freddie, it's really interesting that you say this because this really plays into my theory that, for example, Del Toro, I don't know if you guys knew this, but he's actually unaware that he's even in the video game. They just popped a mocap suit on him, and they're just following him around.
He always walks around with a baby in a jar.
Yeah. He does, yeah, and a mocap suit. This is a normal Thursday afternoon for him. He had no idea he's in a video game, so it makes sense that eventually you're going to end up with, The Shape of Water, and you're underwater with Doug Jones in a fish costume.
Oh no!
Can we talk about the fact that like Guillermo del Toro is in this movie or in this game, and that's just normal, apparently. Like, a Guillermo del Toro movie is bizarre and kind of weird in and of itself, and he feels like not the weirdest thing in this entire game. Like,
yeah, I think that's the twist. He's going to be the most normal thing in this game.
that would be the voice of reason.
No, listen, we should all put babies into jars.
No, you don't understand. Norman Reedus has to do this.
They will protect you from the BTs. The bridge babies.
Well, they actually kind of talk about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like in one of the trailers, they're kind of going over like the lore of what the bridge babies are. And apparently, like, it never confirms what they are, but they have to like recharge them in this thing called the Still Mother. And it like reorients them and makes them, because apparently they're aware of what's happening, but their consciousness is altered or changed in some form or fashion. So like they have to recharge their consciousness or like perception of reality. So Guillermo del Toro's character, I think is what's his character's name? Does anybody remember?
Deadman.
Guillermo. Oh, I thought it was Del Toro. His character's name.
Deadman is like talking about the bridge babies and says like they can't live past a year old. And Sam is really like, he's not completely torn up about it, but you can tell he says something like, so will I have to get rid of mine? And Deadman tells him don't get attached. And you can tell that like Sam is very like almost kind of like shocked by that. So I'm curious if one mechanic, or maybe there's going to be a choice in the game where you have to decide to like get rid of your bridge baby, which is going to be like really like emotional, I can imagine. Like you're literally giving up a fetus, essentially.
Yeah, we haven't talked about how this game is essentially a baby simulator. Like you have to take care of this baby, like whenever you're doing something difficult, which is all the time. Like if the baby gets stressed and you have to soothe it. So I imagine is kind of a way to probably have the player grow attached to this thing that you have to constantly soothe.
And see, I think one of the twist endings is we're actually going to find out that the baby is the founder of Konami. And in a twist ending, you just chuck that baby off a cliff and the game ends. You're like, yes, this is it. This is how Kojima finishes.
I mean, you touched on that. I really am curious how much of this game is going to be one giant middle finger to Konami, because especially after the way PT ended and that entire debacle, that was kind of where Kojima, I think, officially drew the line and said, I'm out. I'm curious how much of this is going to be just a complete, like, screw you to Konami, because
Norman Reedus was part of PT too.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
Del Toro was also producing, I want to say.
Yeah, because that felt like Del Toro.
Yeah.
PT
Yeah.
did.
And I'm curious, like, PT is probably one of my favorite ideas that like got canned because it was so interesting. I'm curious how many ideas are going to migrate from PT. I don't know if Konami owns the IP, the ideas behind PT, But I'm curious if there's going to be like, is this going to be PT inspired in any way? Obviously, it's going to be a different feel because it's not Silent Hill. But I don't know. There were so many cool things in PT, and I just hate to see that idea just wither and die on the vine.
There was a fetus in PT, so we got that going.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that.
Well, see, didn't PT literally stand for playable trailer?
It did. Yeah.
And so I think that's the idea. I think that is a trailer, is a foreshadowing of maybe what could happen. And I don't know if, speaking to your thought, Jordan, I almost wonder if it won't necessarily borrow so many things from PT as almost be a reflection of what PT could have been.
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
So pull some of these ideas, and again, that atmosphere, because again, like, you get to a point, PT had zero interesting game mechanics in terms of actual gameplay.
It was a hallway simulator. Like
it was exactly.
It was incredibly boring, but the setting and the atmosphere in that game was so good.
It drew you in, and so I think if nothing else, Death Stranding is a spiritual successor in that regard.
I just want to piggyback off this since we're talking about PT. One of the things that I wanted to bring up, one of my favorite pieces of dialogue from PT is when you like die in PT and respawn, the paper bag says something like, "The only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you?" And I really feel like that's relevant here because it's like, the only me is me. Are you sure the only you is you? And there's this whole theme of like connection and bridges and how are all these characters going to mesh together and like what's on the other side? I don't know. Like, I'm probably reaching there, but I really want that to be a thing.
I think we're going to get to the end and realize that the true connection was the friendships we made along the way.
I think you're closer than you think on that. I based on the interviews I've seen, that does seem to be kind of what Kojima's trying to get us to understand.
Friendship is magic.
Yeah.
I'm so afraid of that because he talks about connection and all this stuff, and so I'm afraid it's just going to end up being a commentary on social isolation in the age of social media, and it's going to be just as ham-fisted as you'd think it'd be.
Well, hopefully not, because I actually saw a quote from him where he said the game is about connections, but I've not said like whether this is a positive thing or not.
Good point. Very good point.
Interesting.
So maybe that's up for us as the player to decide whether or not those are positive connections.
Yeah, so we know that there's this terrorist group that's part of, I think it's called Edge City?
Edge Knot City.
And they want their city to remain independent. They don't want Sam Porter Bridges to bridge their city with all the other cities. And I think it might turn out, and this is one of my predictions, that it will be almost like a warmonger villain from Black Panther, where like they might bring up some good points about being independent and what that means to them and what are the downsides to connecting all these cities together and essentially recreating the American government. So, like, they're still bad guys, but I feel like they might have some valid points, I guess. And I'm just getting that from the fact that he said that, like, it is about connections, but I'm not saying whether it's positive or not. That's for you to decide.
That's very on brand for Kojima, too.
Like, and also on brand for video games in general. You're starting to get kind of close to something I was going to predict, which is that you're working for the UCA, United Cities of America. You're trying to connect all these cities because they attempted to before and failed. And the president, who, by the way, took over for her mother, not sure if Kojima knows how the presidency works, they previously tried to connect them, and they failed. This
is how it will work in the future.
Yeah, this is what's going to happen.
And Sam is trying to go across the country and connect everyone. And because when Emily tried, the current president, when she tried to go across the country, she failed and was captured by the gang at Edge Knot City, which by the way are called the Homo Demons. Kojima named it, not me. And they capture her, and she's talking to Sam through a hologram and telling him to do all this. And I think it's pretty much a given. Can we all agree it's probably a given that the UCA is going to end up being a bad guy?
Ooh, yeah.
Because it seems like every game where you work for an organization of some kind at the beginning, and they seem like they always do a heel face turn before the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll end up working for the government, and he'll do this, and he'll make as many connections as possible. Then he'll realize it's wrong, and then he'll go rogue, and then the government will hunt him down, and cue credits, I guess.
And,
I
and
mean, that's been played
go
before.
he'll get in with the homo demons.
Oh yes,
He'll become a homo demon.
That's an interesting take. I kind of thought it would be like sort of this. I guess I still have Marvel movies on the brain, but just sort of this like you bring up some good points there, but you're going too far. You know what I mean?
No, not all of that. Calm down a little.
We like freedom, but not that much.
Exactly.
Right. So like with Warmonger and like the Vulture and Spider-Man, it's like, oh, you actually bring up some good points about race and class, but you're taking it way too far. Like, step it back a notch. I guess that's kind of how I thought it would go. But I do like this idea that maybe he would just completely switch sides at the end.
Yeah, there's a trailer where, like I said, where Emily is talking to him through a hologram. And my theory is that the hologram is completely virtual. That the UCA made it up entirely. It's not her communicating with him at all. It's a complete and total fabrication.
Yeah. Like there's not an actual daughter of the president.
Well, no, I think she actually was kidnapped. She's just not communicating with him. She's not the one telling him to do this.
Just like, you fool! You think there was actually a daughter of the president that was telling you to do things? Why would you ever listen to her?
That's not even how the presidency works, Sam.
Come on, Norman Reedus. Sure,
we learned Sam didn't pass like 12th grade civics class. He's just like a functional idiot.
Wait, you mean she's not a princess?
And then the simulation ends, and it was actually Sam's 11th grade teacher going, "Get it together." You're supposed to have known better. Just trying to get this poor boy to graduate.
It's working great.
Can you imagine how like mad people would be if that was how it ended?
Oh, that'd be awful.
What we thought was a commentary on the government is actually a commentary on the U.S. education system.
I know this can't happen, but nothing would make me happier than to have Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Revengeance show up. Just because all of this is talking about politics anyways, I would just love for that character to show back up. I don't know if anybody here has played Revengeance, but... I've
seen clips. I've seen enough.
God. That game is probably one of my top, 5 games of all time. It's so good, and it's so over the top, and so stupid, and so wonderful.
Senator Armstrong, if nobody's played this game, is basically the world's strongest Republican.
Could have gone pro. Nano machine, son.
But yeah, back to the idea of connections too, and whether they're good or not. Mads Mikkelsen's character, there's a point in the trailer where he says something like connections are hard to make when you can't even shake hands. So that kind of leads me to see some credence in what Matt was saying about the kind of a metaphor about real human connections versus online ones or social media ones. And it makes me think that people can't touch each other in this universe for some reason. What's important to note in that trailer too is that Mads Mikkelsen says, but he also says, but I've always had a good connection to the other side. And as he says that, he rises out of a swamp in that kind of World War II era other side thing that you see. And he's got skeleton men around him, like skeleton soldiers with glowing red eyes are taking point on him. So back to my original theory about the other side. That makes me think that Mads Mikkelsen is going to the other side, and that other side is his movie Polar. And those skeletons around him are the careers of the people who were involved in that movie. Just dead and gone.
Oh my gosh, because if you haven't watched that movie, we attempted it. And so it was basically someone sat down and said, okay, what if we took the idea of John Wick, we slashed the budget in half, and then we took the old person appeal from Liam Neeson's Taken series, and we crammed it all into one movie. And that's Polar. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen.
So yeah, Mads Mikkelsen is really punching above his weight by being in Death Stranding, apparently.
This is his atonement.
It's his atonement, but those poor other people involved, they're now skeleton men.
They're now skeleton men.
I mean, Mickelson was technically in like Doctor Strange as the most boring villain ever, so I guess he has that cred going for him. But
boy, I'm going to send you an image from the Rhino from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I bet you'll feel pretty dumb right now.
Okay, that's Sony, not Marvel. We don't talk about Sony movies because those suck.
Are you talking about the villain that Doctor Strange just annoys to death?
Yeah, like Caecilius, the like evil like
God?
apprentice.
No,
No, that's Dormammu. Caecilius is the guy
yeah.
working for Dormammu, the human.
Okay, yeah, I completely forgot that character, so I think you're right.
Yeah, he's not a good character, and I don't know if it's Mickelson's fault or if it's that movie, but yeah, he's not a fun, memorable character at all.
Man, if anybody ever starts listening to our podcast, we're going to get such hate mail from Mad Mickelson's fan club.
All 4 of them.
And people that avoid trailers.
But that does lead me to a serious prediction, though, that there's a part in the trailer, too, where Mads' character is talking to the bridge baby.
Yeah.
And he says, pretty soon you'll be able to go wherever you want to without fear of death, even the moon. And so that pretty much says to me the game's going to go to the moon at some point. And Norman Reedus is going to the moon, that's for sure.
Or at least it's not taking place on Earth. Like we're going somewhere else than just like terra firma.
But I also have a theory that Mads Mikkelsen's character is a grown-up bridge baby. He's one that somehow made it past year 1.
So here's something to note. In the first trailer, where we first see Mads Mikkelsen's character, the skeletal guys are actually connected to him through an umbilical cord, like Ashley was talking about earlier. So I like that theory, Freddie.
Or he could have died, and like he is like, if he's saying to the baby you can go anywhere you want and not have to fear death, it could be like it's because you're dead. You don't have to fear death.
Okay, have you guys watched, and this is like, I hadn't even thought of this up until just now. Like, it had really just, I've almost forgotten about it. But have you guys watched the Doctor Who episode called The Doctor's Daughter? Are you familiar with that at all?
No.
Okay, so the Doctor shows up in the middle of this remarkable war. And as he talks to people, he realizes it has gone on for generation upon generation upon generation. And the stories have been passed on, but the stories are pretty unclear because it's just been, the fog of war has just settled on this place for so long. As he goes on, he realizes that their soldiers are actually clones, and that they just sort of cloned themselves to keep this war going. So all this generational talk of, the stories, the epics, the tales of this war have been passed along. But as he goes back, he realizes the war has only been going on for 7 days. But they've made so many clones and so many generations of those clones that basically time has lost all meaning. So what sounds like a war that's been waging for hundreds of years has only happened for the past 7 days. And so I wonder if something like that could be happening here, that you have these, very quick turnarounds, you have these clones, and actually what feels like this huge sweeping story could just be a few days after the apocalypse. And you have, again, with these babies, we don't know what time is like, we don't know what these bridge babies do. So in terms of, like, I feel like there could be a lot of possibilities of how this could eventually play out.
Well, there is something in the game called Timefall, which is like rain.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of playing with time in this game, but go ahead.
I think you understand Timefall better than me, so
Well, I don't understand it any more than the next person, because it just seems to be like, when it rains, I don't know if it's a specific kind of rain or just every time it rains, like the rain will actually like fast forward time. Whatever the rain hits. So we see a trailer where it's like hitting a guy and he's like growing older, and then like birds are just falling out of the sky because I guess the rain has been essentially making them grow old and die like that quick. I feel like I kind of want to go back to the bridge babies, because I think we just started talking about them, like we just assumed people knew what this was, but in case you don't know, you carry a fetus around in a jar in this game.
The Reedus fetus.
Yeah, the Reedus fetus.
The funky fetus.
And it was interesting what you said, Jordan, because you said like you saw that they were like charged in this thing called a still mother.
Yeah.
So what I saw, and this could be like older information, was like that the bridge babies were actually born of still mothers. So I assume mothers that are already dead by the time they have the baby. So, and that is why they have a connection to the other side. Now, I don't know if that's true or if that was like someone misinterpreting like this thing that they call the still mother.
Oh, now it might very well be that, because like that was a very lore centric thing, so I might have missed that. So yeah, like the video that I saw didn't explain what a still mother was.
Oh yeah.
Just said like these are still mothers, they were born from still mothers, etc.
Okay.
Putting the baby in the machine now, and it's like, what? Okay, fine, just let it roll. We'll go with it. Like
yeah.
So.
I mean, it opens. If that's the case, it opens up some pretty I guess pretty creepy endings. I don't know how many bridge babies there are in this game. Like, you only see the one that Norman Reedus has, I think. But, like, if they're just kind of making these bridge babies, because what they do, gameplay-wise, is they allow you to see the BTs and possibly maybe get you back when you go to the other side. They're the connection that gets you back, maybe. I'm not really sure. But if they like need these bridge babies to like traverse the landscape, then the idea is that they could just be killing mothers in order to make these babies, which is truly terrifying.
So that's when the UCA goes too far and you find out they're the bad guys.
Probably. I mean, that could be it. That could be why Norman Reedus is like, oh, you've been doing this the whole time?
Yeah, and he joins the Homo Demons.
As you should.
As one does. Well, so
that's the only other choice.
This is one thing that kind of like taking it back to like large scale stuff for just a second. Do we even know what genre of game this is? Because that doesn't entirely seem to be apparent from anything that I've seen. Like, is this an adventure? Is it horror?
I saw a quote where Kojima said that it was going to be a completely new genre. Now, I kind of take that as like, you're really fawning over your game if you're saying this is a completely new thing that no one's ever seen before. But he seems like pretty convinced that this is a new genre, and I've also heard other people refer to it as action adventure. But
okay,
yeah, it's funny because the article I read on, I think it was Thrillist, so I can give credit where credit is due, Thrillist.com. They mentioned that Kojima said that the game, he didn't like to call it an action RPG because it was more so than that. And then the next paragraph was, so the action RPG, Death Stranding.
It's like, whatever, Kojima. We're going to call it that anyway.
I'm going to wait for the Thrillist article that says Kojima breaks own wrist slapping himself on the back.
I did see some gameplay of him just straight up. There's another faction too with yellow. They wear yellow jumpsuits. I'm not sure what they do.
Yeah, the mules. Is that what they're called?
It's something like that. But I saw Sam getting a straight fist fight with them, and that was pretty visceral. It looked like the combat was pretty.
Oh, so this actually leads me to my other prediction. Not necessarily about the ending, but something that happens kind of gameplay wise. So it's I also saw something where I don't remember where it was, but something about like there is combat in this game, and there is stealth, and you will get in combat with other humans, not just the BTs. But sometimes I heard that killing them might not be the best idea, but there wasn't really an explanation as to why that is. So I have a theory that like every human that you kill or that dies in this world will end up on the other side, and you'll just have to kill them on the other side if you die. So the more people you kill, the worse off you make it for yourself.
That's interesting. I like that.
You have to live with the consequences of your own actions.
Yeah.
They could
curse
become
you
BTs.
Past me.
They could become BTs and make the world more difficult for you.
That's true.
This side.
They could make the world more difficult in reality, not just the other side. And I also heard, and I hope this isn't spoiler territory. I guess it's a spoiler for a side quest, but there's a side quest with an old man that you're constantly delivering medicine to. And this was just kind of talking about how your actions in this game will have consequences. So there's a point where, you can decide whether you want to keep delivering him medicine or not. And if you don't, like, he will die. So it would just be horrible to end up on the other side, see that old man flailing you with his cane, like, you did this to me.
You failed.
It's the anti-Skyrim.
And that's interesting because if you're going all the way from Washington, D.C. on the East Coast to Edge Knot City on the West Coast, I don't understand how you can keep going back to this man.
I know. At that point, your responsibility to him has to cease at some point.
You're like, you gotta tell him, listen, I gotta get my kicks on Route 66.
Unless unlocking
You're gonna have to find another delivery man, dude. I'm traveling halfway, all the way across the country. I can't come all the way back every couple days to give you your medicine.
Unless unlocking the terminals unlocks some kind of fast travel system. Because I'd imagine they wouldn't send you on this quest just to connect people with tin cans and strings.
That's exactly what happens.
I think that is what happens. I think you're right. And then you travel through those wires and tin cans like Mario in Super Mario Odyssey. Just going to ball of electricity and just right along back to the old man.
I just love it if the ending Sam connects all these cities and then he finds out it was nothing but string and cans. And he was like, we have all this technology. Why did you make me travel across the country to just connect strings and cans together?
Alternatively, we learn that when chiral beasts, I'm not sure if those are BTs or not. I think I've said this before. We learned that when they eat people, they cause a void out, which is a crater. And that crater is this stuff in that area literally getting taken to the other side and leaving a void where it was. So alternatively, the UCA is actually setting up a system that's going to void out the entire United States, because their solution is going to be to take the entire country to the other side and be together that way.
That's pretty cool.
Because obviously the UCA is going to be the bad guys. Obviously.
Yeah.
And they're setting up a system to do that. And the bad guys' plan is always to take everything over to to the worst idea possible is always the bad guy's plan.
It's true.
It's like, well, if we're gonna die anyway, we'll just
Let's
be
all
the one.
die together.
Yeah.
That's what Kojima meant.
It reminds me of like Doom 2016, where it's like, we're harnessing the energy from hell. What could possibly go wrong? You know? So,
I don't see any negative consequences of this whatsoever.
there's no way this can, go completely sideways on us. Cut to 5 minutes later, everything's like covered in blood.
I mean, it's like we have a whole plane of resources. Why wouldn't we use it?
The reason that I wanted to ask about genre was specifically because it looks like from everything that I've seen, Sam is not very capable as like a fighter. Like, he looks like he can hold his own in a fist fight, but he's, like you said earlier, Freddie, he's just a regular dude.
Yeah, and all the combat I've seen, he's like whacking people with his packages.
Yeah.
So it's not like he's well prepared for combat.
No, it doesn't even seem like I don't think we've seen him. I haven't seen him anyways with a gun or a knife or anything. Like, this is not a Solid Snake character.
He only has that. He has that one gun, but like I said, I think it's only for BTs.
Okay. Because my thing is that it looks like Sam himself is completely powerless. My theory is going to be that somewhere in the storyline, probably halfway through, more than halfway through, you're going to end up losing your bridge baby. And because horror type games always do that, where if you've got a crutch to use, they're going to take that away from you and force you to survive without that. Like, you're going to not have a flashlight, or your night vision isn't going to work for a particular stretch of the game or something like that. So I think there's going to be a part where like your bridge baby like dies or something terrible happens to it, and you're forced to survive without the bridge baby until you can find a new bridge baby, maybe.
And see, I think you bring up something interesting because something I've thought about with like the beach things and you sort of like this other side. I almost wonder if do you guys remember the opening of Arkham Knight?
Where they're burning the Joker?
Joker's
body?
Yeah, I think they're going to burn the Joker in the beginning. No, that's not what I was going to say at all. What
you mean like the diner?
Yeah, the
I
diner.
hope they
exactly.
do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, what game am I playing?
Yeah.
All right, it's Death Stranding. This fits perfectly.
This makes absolute sense now.
Death Stranding is actually just every other game released for the PlayStation 4 cut up and like reproduced.
Oh no, it's Skyrim again.
Skyrim again.
Hey, you're awake.
Okay. All right, easy. So, all right, getting back to my remarkably immaculate theory that you guys just destroyed.
You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. What happened was that the Scarecrow released this poison, and it made it look like everyone else was like this horrible, rotting carcass of a villain, right? And you had to fight them, and you were the only sane one, and you were fighting them off, and you were holding your own, and you were trying to stay alive. Well, spoiler alert, that's what everybody else saw too, including you. And so I almost wonder if that won't play into it, because there's this obviously this very big idea of the other side and what that means and what that looks like. And so I wonder if it doesn't look like Reedus is fighting for his life against all the other beach things, but on the other side, he looks like one of the beach things to them. Everyone is alone in their own perfectly sterile idea of reality, that they're the only sane one left, and they're fighting for this big, glorious, righteous mission of connecting everybody.
Interesting.
See, that plays into my idea too, that everybody's game is canonically connected to the same universe.
Exactly.
Because you're just a BT to somebody else, and they're a BT to you.
Mm-hmm. A BT that builds bridges and helps people out.
Yeah. Apparently, if stuff gets knocked off you, people can pick it up too, like off your body.
Yeah.
Because Norman is just a big old pack mule.
Yeah, I really love that idea that it's like all canon, like all the Norman Reeduses exist, and they might be someone else's BT in another game or something.
Don't you get it? It's Norman Reeduses all the way down.
Exactly.
Because this is really my ultimate theory, and that is this is all here to establish the Norman Reedus video game universe.
The NRVGU?
The one and only.
Everyone is Norman Reedus.
Norman Reedus becomes all.
I would love a canon universe that was all just one dude.
Yeah, it really goes back to that line in the PT trailer that Jordan was talking about, like, there's only one me, are you sure there's only one you? Or I probably botched that, but...
No, it was pretty much the idea there, yeah.
Is there only one Norman Reedus? Are you sure about that?
That's what Kojima's trying to tell us. That's really what the game's trying to teach us. He's trying to warn us about this underground army
Norman Reeduses.
Of Norman Reeduses.
Please be careful, you don't know what you're playing with here.
And after everyone plays it, he's like, well, that was a pretty good curriculum.
Oh, God. So the end of chapter 3 is just, like, you hear pounding from inside a bunker. And then, like, it gets released and it's a flood, like, Daisy style of Norman Reeduses.
Oh, it's like the flood being revealed in Halo 1, but instead.
Yeah.
No joke. I thought you were about to say that you hear pounding on your door.
Oh, God.
And you open your front door and it's a
I
flood
did
of
too.
Norman Reeduses.
Yeah.
The call is
They're
coming from
running on
inside
all
the house.
Yeah.
Come on in, guys.
It just breaks the fourth wall. It actually shows, like, your own bedroom or living room, and there's a knock on your bedroom or living room door. And Norman Reedus.
Oh,
a bunch of Norman Reeduses are on the other
stop
side.
talking now. I have to sleep tonight. I need you to stop.
Well, it would explain, though, why the audience score of Boondock Saints is so high. Because on Rotten Tomatoes, because all the Norman Reeduses are voting it up.
We brought them on to the universe.
I think that joke got what it deserved.
That kind of reminds me of what was the name of that movie where the guy was stuck in like a town and he thought he was the only person in it? It's from the 90s. Was it Jim Carrey? Was he in it? Or
Truman Show.
Truman Show. That would actually be kind of an interesting like spin on this. Like if this was all in like Norman Reedus's, Sam's head or something.
Well, actually, the plot of Truman Show is that he's on a big reality show.
Yeah.
And he doesn't realize it because everybody's in on it but him. And you just led me to really how this game is actually going to end, which is that everybody's just screwing with Norman Reedus. Like they're just all enjoying watching this guy flail out in the American Midwest.
Oh God.
So the reason the graphics look so good is this is just a movie. That's actually Norman Reedus. It's not a CGI model or anything.
We actually attach Norman Reedus to an exoskeleton, and when you move him on the controller, it forces his body toward whatever you push.
Oh man.
You gotta do something after Walking Dead.
Well, guys, now that we have completely cracked this game, I believe that is all the time we have for tonight. Any final thoughts? Any last predictions?
UCA is totally going to be bad, guys.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Norman Reedus is his own bridge baby.
That was actually my theory. I wrote that down in my notes. The baby's actually Norman Reedus. You have to deliver him to Robert Kirkman, the writer, the author of Walking Dead.
Like, I feel like that one's a bit obvious, but I feel like that's why Sam is so like taken back by the idea of like getting rid of his bridge baby, because that's going to come back and bite him, almost kind of like BioShock Infinite.
He starts fading from existence, like from Back to the Future.
Yeah, or kind of like the movie Looper or something.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So it's not because a baby he has to carry around is going to die. It's just because he's going to end up killing himself if the baby dies.
That's the only reason he cares about it.
Yeah.
He'll fade out of existence.
The world needs more of me.
He'll hold up a photograph of himself and he'll be fading out of it.
I had to stop myself really hard to not make a Nickelback reference when you said hold up this photograph.
And we are definitely done for tonight.
I just want to let you all know as my friends, and I want to let the internet know that I didn't do it though. I stopped myself.
You implied it. That's enough.
It was an implication, and now you all are hearing the song in your heads. Yeah. Congratulations.
And I'm imagining Norman Reedus holding up the picture while singing it. While he's fading out of the picture.
That's how the game's going to end.
Just no context. He just does that.
That's on brand for Kojima.
Yeah, oh god, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Guys, thanks so much for listening. It is so great to have you here. If you're still listening from Brazil, we are so happy to have you. We're going to keep picking on you until you send us a message on Twitter, email, something like that. For everybody else, we're really happy to have you too. Thanks for continuing to listen and share. I've avoided this because I don't want to sound like that guy, but it really would mean a lot for us if you would like go to iTunes iTunes doesn't exist anymore. Go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review, give us a rating. That would be really, really cool. If you haven't, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. We are on quite a few platforms now, so there's really no excuse for you not to be listening and following us, because
no excuse.
We're everywhere. We shall encompass all.
Just like Norman Reedus.
Just like Norman Reedus. Exactly. We're the Norman Reedus of social media. There's no reason for you not to interact with us. Share with your friends. Just let other people know what's going on if you like it. If you don't like it, share it with someone you think would. Because I'm sure you can think of at least one nerdy friend. You go, I bet they'd like this. I bet they'd enjoy these people saying the words Norman Reedus at least 55 times over the course of 1 hour.
Have a listening party.
Yes, that's a great idea, actually.
Have a listening party. Bring some booze and a Ouija board. Make your own predictions.
See how close we are.
That'll be interesting.
Bring your own Norman Reedus.
We are not responsible for any demon.
BYONR.
We have established there's plenty of them to go around.
Exactly. You're not responsible for what Norman Reedus may or may not do once he is in your clutches.
And congratulations on achieving the best possible ending.
Guys, thank you so much for listening. Tonight we may or may not have spoiled Death Stranding.
I forgot to look up. This is important for a gag I want to do in the show. Was Polar with Mads Mikkelsen, was that a good movie?
Which one?
Polar with Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, I don't think it was.
It's not on Rotten Tomatoes at all.
Oh, I remember. We tried to watch this.
God, it's horrible. It's 20%. Yes,
Yeah.
okay, my joke will work.